For watching. This is James Robertson with WorkSpace Real Estate, and we're going to go into an in-depth review of 1235 North Loop West. This property was built in 1981. Was recently sold for $27 million as part of a portfolio in August of 2015. It's about 219,000 square feet of space. It's 12 stories overall. A typical floor plate here is about 18,000 square feet of space. It is a Class B building here. There's 114 parking spaces in this location. There's 114 free surface spaces that are available. There's 300 free covered spaces that are available. Reserved spaces are here at about $40 to $50 a month, I believe is the price for it. Those that are familiar with the Houston market know that this building used to be a different color. Telemundo has always been consistent up here, but I think it was like a bluish color at first, and they just recently repainted it. I believe that coincided with the new purchase. So let's see if we can get some other details of the property. So here are some pictures that we can see. I'm sorry about the size, they're kind of small, but it has a pretty decent curb appeal. It's a very uh, decent looking building for a Class B space. There are some newer, fresher developments out there. It's very traditional for the year it was built. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at some of the analytics here quickly. The first chart that I want to look at for 1235 North Loop West is the rental rate here compared to the green line, which is the market for the North Loop area. That's on 610. And the yellow line here is Houston. So for most Class B spaces in the Houston market, since 2012, Houston has been trending upward from $23 a foot to 2016, which is hovering at about $27 a foot. Notice the slight decline here, which is very important because you very rarely see any decreases in average rents in this market, even with the slower market like this. This is atypical. So the market hit us pretty hard here, and we actually saw a decline as far as Houston as a whole, where the market dropped from 28 bucks a foot for Class B space. Now looks like it was trying to get down to close to 27 bucks a foot here. The North Loop West market has had a little bit more volatile increase, but it's an increase nonetheless. You see very few declines here in rental rate. 2012 there was a slight decrease. 2013 very small decrease as well. 2014 very small decrease, and again a slight correction about the same point in the middle of 2015 to 2016. As you can see here, the market has started to turn around, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now here's our building at 1235 North Loop West. 2012 was about 16 bucks a foot is the asking rental rate, and I do need to note that when we say 16 bucks, that's what they are advertising. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were doing deals at this price point. For that information, I can give you guys actual deal information that we've actually done in this building. I think that sheds a lot of light, but these are great data points to look at trends. So 2012, you see us at 16 bucks a foot, very slight decline here. Now let's look at when this property was sold for $27 million in 2015. Interestingly enough, rates stayed about the same. And we need to look at why that is with some other data. I want to look at the vacancy here to explain that. But we noticed in 2016, we're starting to see this increase here. I'll bet you that we're going to see much lower vacancies here where they're getting really comfortable with this rate. Now, they're already below market. As you can see here, that the North Loop West as a whole is sitting at about 23 bucks a foot, whereas this building is sitting right at about 20 bucks a foot. So we're already ahead of the game here, but we do want to understand where this building sits so we can understand how much leverage we do have to renegotiate a renewal or consider this for new space. Now this data point is pretty telling when we look at this graph. The orange is the vacancy rate for 1235 North Loop West since 2012. So you can see us hovering a little bit over 20%. Then the vacancy rate dropped down to about 11% here, or I'm sorry, 12%, which is a pretty significant lease up. That may have been one or two large tenants here. Then it popped right back up again, close to 20% vacancy rate in a year. Landlords don't like to be this high. They always want to make adjustments, try to get more tenants in. That's when you usually see a change in the rate. We can see here that they were hovering at about 1650 as vacancy started to decrease, meaning they got more tenants, rates started to go up. And you can see the correlation there. If we looked at an average, we'd still see them hovering at about a 16% vacancy rate consistently. And you can also see them hovering at about this $17 to $18 a foot right here. If you took an average of all these points you see here, what's significant to me is looking at where we are now. 2016, we saw a pretty significant drop in vacancy rate. So we're picking up tenants here. At the same time, they are cautiously moving rent rates up. Now the market is about here. So we're not even seeing where the market is, but they're creeping up to match that. I think they can very safely reach this point and still continue their velocity. Now things seem to be tapering off at this point here. I can't wait till next quarter to see where we really are, but they're saying we're at 16.2% vacancy. The sweet spot here is going to be for them to be at about a 10%, 8 to 10% vacancy rate. They want to be about here. And in order to get there, in a matter of time, they will. If they keep rates the same, they will probably continue to trend upwards and be right where they want to be within a year or two without decreasing rates. So I would assume if I was a landlord broker, I can very comfortably keep my rents right about here and be exactly on track to where I want to be. So as a tenant, and because this is why we're doing this, as a tenant looking for space, I want to find out what's the best type of deal I can negotiate here. So let's see if we can look at more data to show where we would need to be in a proposal situation. Now, based on what I know about 1235 North Loop West, the fact that this building was part of a portfolio, the fact that it sold for $27 million or $127 a foot, the fact that it is already below market, all of these point toward this is a value play in the marketplace. Yes, there's going to be some flexibility in rate. How far we can push them, if I look at past deals, I can tell you our own firm history. We've gotten deals at the close, a little bit north of $16 a foot and $17 a foot here. I think that that's achievable. I think this next quarter coming up, it's going to be a little bit stiffer on concessions just because they don't really have to make the concessions. When I try to figure out what a bottom should be and what we should recommend for a client, I do look at where the Houston market is, which is much higher. You look at the regional area, the local market, which again is significantly higher. They could stand to increase a little bit more and get some leverage. But I like the fact that this particular landlord has not pushed the rental rates up that much further to match. I can point to some other buildings here that are a little bit newer that are right here at this mark, and they're staying directly in line with the market, and they're still seeing an increase in leasing velocity. In other words, they're raising their rates and they're still getting deals done. That tells me demand is healthy, and that in order to get a renewal, our strategy should be to start early. We need to focus on getting our rents as close to or as far below this line as we can. I don't think we're going to get lower than 2013 levels here, just because a lot's changed since then. But we're talking about 19 to 20 bucks a foot, I think is reasonable, and we need to hit them with other concessions, such as abated rent outside of the term. That's something that historically with this client, I know we can get a certain amount of leverage with them. So we do need to talk about how much free rent we think we can work into the equation. We need to also look at potential build out. What, if any, changes do you need to the space? Do you need paint and carpet? Do you need an update on the interior? Do you need additional cabinetry? Those are all factors that we need to know about to help tweak this number. If I'm assuming that you need nothing in the way of build out, that you're coming in to renew this lease without spending any additional TI dollars, I would say that you definitely are going to be in the $18 to $19 a foot very comfortably here. I just don't see a reason for the landlord to go that much lower. Now, there's another section that we're not even looking at here. So that's the pricing, but there's another section that I do want to talk about briefly, and that's going to be the actual lease itself. So once you have the broad parameters negotiated, we still need to make sure that the lease language, and I'm talking about the business points, not the actual lease itself. We need to make sure the lease language is going to be appropriate for the lease we want. All of these numbers I'm quoting you are based on a 5-year deal. When we get to a 3-year deal, your rate's going to change. It's going to go up a little bit based on the market. They usually don't do less than a 3-year deal here. They usually want to do a 5-year deal at this type of location. So longer term deals, we have more wiggle room. So my numbers I'm quoting are assuming a 5-year deal. Now, I wish I can show the lease copy here because that's where we really dig into the details. We're talking about how to cap your controllable costs. We're looking at your sublease options. We need to look at um, the termination options if you want some. There's a lot of things that we need to actually look at that all affect the value of this property. One thing that's important to note about this property as well is capital improvements. This was recently purchased. Obviously, they've done some improvements here. There still has a lot of interior improvements that need to be done to this space. Common area needs to be updated. You know, elevators may need maintenance work. There's probably some roof work that needs to be done here very soon if it's not done already. When this happens, that's going to be a significant cost that'll be added to every tenant. It's a capital expense, and that's something that needs to be negotiated up front. This can affect your rent quite a bit. 2,000 or 3,000 square foot space can see their rent adjusted several $100s a month based on just one of these major capital improvements done. So these are all things that we need to discuss on a case by case basis that will affect your rent, sometimes much more than moving the rental rate a dollar or two. And we need to go into that scenario, talk to the landlord, and make sure we have an understanding of what is planned in the future so we can account for that in the actual lease document. So I hope this information was helpful to you. If you have any more questions about this property, we love talking about the market. We want to be a resource. So I'll try to post more information as I keep going through this market and go through different buildings. Give me some feedback. Let me know if this is helpful. Let me know if there's other things we can do to add value as well. This is James Robertson signing off. Thank you for watching.